Today, I'm going to show you how to efficiently synchronize, clean up, edit, and mix dialogue in Adobe Premiere Pro. The first part of this video will deal with synchronizing audio, so if you recorded audio straight into your camera, feel free to skip ahead to learn how you can clean up your audio using Essential Sound and the audio track mixer. To start off with, it helps to organize your assets. Even with a simple dialogue scene, you'll probably end up with a dozen or so clips. Sort through the stuff you don't need and dump it into a folder called Outtakes. Then label your clips. Here you'll notice that I've labeled my video, shot 1 and shot 2, and the corresponding audio tracks, shot 1 audio and shot 2 audio. It may seem like a lot of work, but it'll help you to avoid confusion later on, particularly if you have different takes of the same shot. To start, I'm going to show you my preferred method for synchronizing audio. I'm going to jump into Premiere Pro and press the New Project button. I'm going to give the project a name. I'm going to call it Dialogue Scene. And I'm going to choose a location for this project. I'm going to put it on the desktop in a folder called Dialogue Scene. And I'm going to press Choose. Then I'm going to press Create. I'm going to hit Command Tab to go back to the Finder. That's Alt Tab on a PC. And I'm going to click here and then hold down Shift to pick up all of my assets. I'm going to drag them and drop them into my project. Now in Premiere, when you select all of the assets by pressing Command A on a Mac or Control A on a PC and right click, you'll get an option called Create Multi-Camera Source Sequence. And this is a really quick and efficient way to sync up video clips with their corresponding audio clip. So I'm going to select that. When you do, under synchronization point, make sure that you've selected audio and you've selected track 1. At this point, you can hit OK. Now, what you'll notice is that I have an error that says could not synchronize one or more clips in the current selection because a match could not be found. I'm going to hit OK. The reason for that is I've got my room tone and my location ambience and a few sound effects and music in here as well. What it's done though, if you look in this folder called Processed Clips, is I've got shot 1, shot 2, and the corresponding audio files as well. What Premiere has done for me is found the audio clips that match those video clips, and it's created these multicam sequences here. So when I double click on shot 1, for example, and scrub through a little bit, what you'll notice is that I have the video clip with the corresponding audio in the same sequence. If I take these two clips and play them back in the timeline, you'll be able to hear the difference between the in-camera audio and the audio recorded with the boom-mounted shotgun microphone.
Yeah, it's like a warm hug for my taste buds, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's like a warm hug for my taste buds, you know what I'm saying?
What you'll notice here is that the multicam sequence has the audio from the shotgun mic synced up and good to go. At this point, it's a really good idea to label your clips with different colors to make them easily distinguishable in your timeline. I'm going to right click on shot 1, go to Label and choose Mango. And I'm going to right click on shot 2, go to Label and choose Rose. At this point, editing becomes a very simple process of double clicking on your multicam sequence, opening it in the source monitor, and scrubbing through to find the beginning of a line. Now this scene actually starts with me sitting at a computer, so I'm going to grab the playhead and scrub forward to find the start of that, which is about here. I'll press I on my keyboard to mark in. I'll hit the space bar to play, and just before I turn, I'm going to press O to mark out. Now you can use your left and right arrow keys to move frame by frame through the source monitor, so you find the right precise moment to cut. I'm going to grab the clip itself, drag it and drop it into my timeline like that. So this process is really a matter of opening one of the multicam sequences, finding where you want that shot to begin. Again, I'm just using the left and right arrow keys to move frame by frame. I'm going to press I to mark in, and I'm going to find the end of this line.
What's crack-a-lackin'?
Which is about here, and I'll press O to mark out. Then I can just drag it and drop it into my timeline. I'm going to repeat this process until I've got the whole scene pretty much edited. Now that I've edited this scene, I'll just play it back for you in the timeline.
Ah, hey man, what's crack-a-lackin'? Oh, hey, just editing this dialogue. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I want it to look really, really good. Cool. Yeah, editing can be a real drag. You know what's not a drag? This delicious, delicious cup of coffee. Yeah, that's wonderful. But I really should get back to... Yeah, it's like a warm hug for my taste buds, you know what I'm saying? Do you want a cup? Really? Nah, not really.
Okay, you'll notice the timing isn't perfect, but later in the video I'll show you how to perform a fine edit just to get the timing right. At this stage, we just need to get the clips in order. Of course, it's also possible to synchronize in the timeline. What I'm going to do is take shot 1, drop it into my timeline like this. I'm going to take the shot 1 audio and drop that into the timeline here. I'm going to press the minus key just to zoom out so we can see both of those clips. Remember, plus allows you to zoom in. I'm going to drag a selection box around these two objects, right-click, and choose Synchronize. Once again, when you're syncing, the synchronization point should be set to Audio Track Channel 1. Hit OK, and what Premiere will do will line up the audio in both of these tracks. The next step when you're synchronizing in the timeline is to zoom in slightly, mouse over the end of one of these clips, it doesn't matter if it's the audio or the video, and just drag it so that they line up. It helps to have snapping, indicated by this magnet icon, turned on when you do that. I'm going to go to the end of this clip, zoom in slightly, and once again, just drag this back so they both line up. Now, when you're editing and synchronizing in the timeline, one of the things that you should do is go to the beginning of the clip. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and what you'll notice that happens if I zoom in, as I drag the playhead towards the clip with Shift held down, it will snap to the beginning. And what that does is gives me a way to line these two up. So I'm going to grab the externally recorded audio, I'm going to drag it, and I'm going to drop it like that. And I've completely written over the in-camera audio, which I didn't want. Once again, I'm going to drag a selection box around these two things and hit Command-L on a Mac, Control-L on a PC to link up these two clips. So now when I select them, it'll pick up both the video and the audio. If you are synchronizing in the timeline like that, editing will be a little bit different. I'm going to use the spacebar to play and pause and find my clips. So with this one, once again, using the left and right arrow keys, I can move through frame by frame and find the moment where I want to begin this shot. Now you'll notice that there's a bit of unnecessary footage here at the beginning of the clip. Two of the most powerful shortcuts in Premiere are the ripple trim shortcuts, which are Q and W on your keyboard. So if I press Q on my keyboard, what will happen is it's going to trim off the bit of the clip before the playhead. So pressing Q will trim off the beginning. Pressing W, which I don't want, will trim off the end of this clip. So that's really handy when you're editing. In order to trim off the beginning of this clip, I'm going to press Q, just like this, and hit the spacebar to find the end of the line.
Ah, hey man, what's crack-a-lackin'?
I'm going to hit the spacebar to pause, and I'm going to press Command K, that's Control K on a PC, to cut. And what I'll do is cut out the unnecessary silence here so that I've got the very next line. And to do that, I'm just going to hit Q on my keyboard.
Cool.
A lot of the time when I'm editing dialogue, I'm simply looking at the waveforms to determine where the line ends. So I don't even need to play this back to know that the line ends about here. Now, in order to make the next cut, I'm going to hit Command K, that's Control K on a PC, and find the beginning of my next line. Once again, I'm just going to hit Q like this.
Yeah, it's like a warm hug for my taste buds.
I'm going to hit the spacebar to pause, Command K to cut once again, and then I can go ahead and trim off the unnecessary part or unnecessary beginning of the next line like that. So moving through, using Command K to cut, using Q to trim off the beginning of the clips, you can move through the dialogue very quickly and cut it up. When you're editing your dialogue in this way, you'll eventually reach a point where you have the two shots cut up like this, and what you have to do is start putting them in order. Of course, we can drag selection boxes around these and move them and then drop a clip in, and if you right click between the clips you can ripple delete, but that's a little bit of a time consuming process. For this next step, make sure that you've got snapping turned on, and the shortcut to do that is S, and you'll notice snapping is turned on when this magnet is blue. What we can now do is drag this clip, and rather than dropping it here at the end of this clip, if we hold down the Command key on a Mac, that's the Control key on a PC, you're going to get these teeth that will help you to perform an insert edit. So with the Command key held down, when I let go of the mouse, what it does is inserts the clip into that gap and pushes everything forward, which is a really handy way to work. Once again, I drag, hold down my Command key, drop it, like so. And snapping is important so that you don't accidentally drop these clips sort of in the middle of a clip, because that can be a little bit disastrous when you have a small sliver of a clip. So that's a quick way to do that, using the Command or Control shortcut to do an insert edit. Once you've got all your clips in place, you may need to work on the timing of particular cuts. If clips need to be trimmed, I use Q and W to ripple trim the beginning and end of clips. So you'll notice here, for example, I've got a very awkward pause after this line.
Crack-a-lackin'.
In order to remove that, I can position my playhead in the timeline like this, use the left and right arrow keys to time that right, and if I hit W on my keyboard, it's going to perform a ripple trim and take off the end of this clip. As easy as that. And you'll notice I have another example of this at the beginning of this clip where I have far too much silence. So what I'm going to do is move my playhead into place about here, just to give a little second before that line, and hit Q on my keyboard, again, to ripple trim the beginning of that clip. So Q and W are your friends. Now, there is another tool in Premiere that's tremendously useful when you're doing this sort of editing, and it's the Ripple Edit tool. It actually lives over here. If you mouse over this third icon from the top, you'll notice that this is the Ripple Edit tool, and the shortcut for picking that up is B on your keyboard. Now, if I press the plus key, just to zoom in a little bit here, you'll notice that I've made the mistake of marking in a little bit too late in the middle of a word right here. So what I'm going to do with my Ripple Edit tool selected is I'm going to mouse over the beginning of this clip and drag it in this direction. And I'm going to do that a couple of times until I can see that's the beginning of this line. So if I play it back, it should sound pretty good.
Cool.
Okay, so that's the Ripple Edit tool. Now, don't forget, when you're done with the Ripple Edit tool, go back to your Move tool so you can continue moving clips around in your timeline. In some dialogue scenes, you may wish to have a character continue speaking when you cut to another character. These are called L and J cuts because of the way they look in the timeline. And while they're typically used for scene transitions, they can look really good in dialogue. And I'm going to give you an example of how to do that in this sequence. So you'll notice here that my very annoying character goes like this. And we cut to the other character's reaction. What I would prefer to have happening here is I would prefer to cut to the other character about here, but still hear this. So what I'm going to do is select these two clips by dragging a selection box around them, hit Command L to unlink, that's Control L on a Windows device, and using the Move tool, I'm just going to mouse over the end of this clip and drag it back here. And likewise, when I mouse over the beginning of this clip and I drag it back in this direction, I'm revealing more of this clip. So what I get is a nice cut to the reaction of this character. And you can see that this clip now makes an L shape. If we went in the opposite direction, so if I was continuing this shot here, you'll notice that this clip forms a J shape in the timeline. So that's where the name L cut and J cut comes from. When you're editing a dialogue scene, you may want to cut away to a character's reaction while the other character continues to talk. Now, the best way to do this is to open a clip in the source monitor. So I've got a shot here where this character takes an annoying, noisy sip from this mug, and I'd like to cut away to the reaction shot that I've already opened up. So this is shot 2 that I've opened up here. Now, I've queued it up at a place where I know I give an annoyed little gesture. So I'm going to press I to mark in, spacebar to play. And just before I say that line, because I just want the reaction, I'm going to press O to mark out. I just want that little shake of my head. Now, rather than dragging the clip, which will bring the audio with it, and I don't necessarily want to do, I'm going to drag the video clip only. So when I mouse over this film strip and then drag it into my timeline, you'll notice that if I put it on the second layer of video here and play this back, we'll cut from this character to the other character and back again, just like that. So that's how you can cut to reaction shots really easily. Essential Sound is a quick and effective way to fix up your audio. I'm going to start by selecting all of the dialogue clips in this sequence. I can drag a selection box around them like this, or I could simply press Command A, that's Control A on a Windows device. I'm going to press the minus button to zoom out a little bit so we can see all of the clips. Now, one of the things you'll notice about this sequence is that the first clip doesn't have any dialogue in it. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key just to deselect that because if I amplify that clip without any dialogue in it, it's simply going to be amplifying a whole lot of noise, which we don't want. And I've also noticed that there is another clip here as well. I'm going to shift click on that one because I don't want to be working with clips that don't have any dialogue in them. And I think I might have to add this clip to that. So I'm actually going to deselect the clips that don't have dialogue. Now, with our dialogue selected on the right-hand side of the screen, you're going to notice that there is this Essential Sound panel. And if you don't see it, go to the window menu and go down to Essential Sound to reveal that. Now, Essential Sound is really simple and it's really powerful. Basically, all you need to do is click on Dialogue, and these are the edits that, or the effects that I usually apply to dialogue. First up, under the heading of loudness, and if you don't see this, you can just click on these titles to reveal or collapse what's underneath them. You'll notice that there is something called auto match. Now, when I click this, watch what happens to the dialogue in my timeline. You'll notice that the waveforms uniformly all got a little bit bigger. So it's basically taken the level up to minus 23 LUFS, which is a standard loudness for broadcast. So LUFS stands for loudness units full scale, and it's a measure you'll often see when you're mastering audio. Even if you're going to apply effects to tracks rather than individual clips, I suggest applying loudness auto match before you get started, because it takes all of the dialogue up to a nice equal level. One of the first repairs that I often do to dialogue is ticking this box, which will reduce noise. So what I'll do is play back a little bit of this dialogue for you so you can hear the kind of the hiss of the microphone in the recording.
Yeah.
Now you'll notice that there's quite a lot of noise in this recording. So if I tick the box that says reduce noise, it's going to take a lot of that background noise out, and the clip will now sound a lot cleaner when I play it back. Let's have a listen.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Now, if it has a kind of negative effect on the recording, you can drag this down to the left, which means that we'll hear more of the noise, but it will have less of a detrimental effect on the recording. Let's have another listen.
But I really should get back to...
I think I was probably happy setting it at 5 there. So we'll set it at 5. Some of the other repairs that you might like to perform, if you've got any low frequency rumbling, so it might be wind hitting the microphone, you can tick this box to reduce that rumble. De-hum will remove a consistent hum from your recording. If you've got actors and mics that are causing a kind of very sibilant sound on those S's, then DS will help to mitigate that kind of harsh sound, which can be handy at times. One of the features that I really love in Essential Sound is reduce reverb. One of the things that you'll notice about this location is that there are a lot of hard surfaces, and it does have a little bit of reverb to it that you typically don't get in rooms that have carpet, that have lots of soft furnishings. Now, if you tick this, it will pretty much remove that reverb from the recording. Again, it's really powerful. So I'm going to play this back.
Yeah, that's wonderful. But I really should get back to...
Now that does sound a little bit harsh, so I am going to drag this down to maybe about 2, and we'll have a quick listen just to see how it sounds.
Yeah, that's wonderful. But I really should get back to...
A little further down in the Essential Sound panel, you'll notice that there's a heading that says Clarity, and underneath that, a checkbox that says Dynamics. This will add a little bit more punch to your recording if you tick it. And if I tick this and we play back the clip now, so let's play it back without that checked.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Okay, you can hear the difference there. Now, my rule of thumb when editing audio is, does it sound better? And if it doesn't, maybe not use it. Under the heading of EQ, when you check this box, there are a range of different presets that you can choose from. The ones that I recommend are Subtle Boost Female and Subtle Boost Male. So if I select Subtle Boost Male, what that's going to do, this line represents the equalization of this particular track. So we've got the very low frequency sounds here, the deep sounds, the very high sounds here. And what it's actually doing is accentuating those tones in the male voice that typically make it sound really sweet. So once again, you can apply this EQ adjustment, play it back, see if it sounds better, and continue on until you get your audio sounding pretty good. Now, Essential Sound is a quick way to improve your audio, but what if you wanted to apply these effects to an entire track rather than to an individual clip? In this sequence, you'll notice that I have all of my audio on track 1, and in Essential Sound, I've gone to Loudness and Auto Match. What I'm going to do is use my audio track mixer. Now, if you can't see this, go to Window, and you'll find the audio track mixer for the sequence there. Okay, when I hit play, what you'll notice is you'll see the audio waveforms going up and down here because this is audio track 1, and this is the overall mix, so you'll see those levels going up as well. I'm going to begin by clicking on this tiny caret symbol just in the corner of the window right here. Now, what this does is reveals the effects and sends. And by clicking on the little drop-down menu next to these empty slots, allows you to bring up a range of different audio effects. So for this project, I'm first of all going to choose noise reduction and restoration and denoise, which is the same effect that is used in Essential Sound. So bringing that up, I can double-click on the effect in that slot, and when I play back my project,
Hey man, what's crack-a-lackin'?
You'll notice that this slider increases or decreases the effect of that noise reduction. So if I turn it up, play it back.
Oh, hey, just editing this dialogue. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I want it to look really, really good. Cool.
All right, I'm going to pause it there. I think that's probably a good amount to reduce the noise by. Because I was also recording in a space with quite a few hard surfaces, there's also a bit of reverb, so I can actually apply a de-reverb to this entire track, just like Essential Sound, but instead of working with individual clips, I'm working with every clip that's on this track. So once again, if I go to the drop-down menu here, if I go down to Noise Reduction and Restoration, de-reverb, Once again, I get some controls if I double click on this effect that I can apply. If I play it back.
Cool. Yeah, editing can be a real drag. You know what's not a drag?
You'll notice when I drag that slider up and down, it increases the amount of de-reverb that's being applied to this entire track. Now, of course, it wouldn't make sense to also apply essential sound to individual clips. I think you either have to choose one or the other, but if there's a clip that you didn't want included in these effects for this track, you could simply drag it down to another track and it will be unaffected by all of the changes that you make. So working in this way is a really powerful and convenient way if you've got a lot of scenes and fairly consistent audio between the shots in those scenes. It's a really efficient and time-effective way of applying effects to an entire track. In some cases, you may hear an audible transition between two clips. Sometimes one clip might be a little bit louder than another, and there's a perceptible transition between the two. Now here you'll notice that the waveform in this second clip is just slightly higher than the first one. So to smooth out that transition, I can go to the Effects tab over here on the left, search for Cross, which will bring up my audio transitions and crossfades. Simply dragging a constant power crossfade between these two clips will smooth out that transition from one to the other. We've edited, we've cleaned up our audio. Now we're going to bring in some other sounds. We've cleaned up the audio so much that it does sound a little bit clean, so I'm going to bring in an ambient sound. I did record some location ambience, but it was so quiet that you can't really hear anything apart from the hiss of the microphone. So what I've done is I've found some room tone from freesound.org, which is a fantastic source of Creative Commons sound effects. I've also got some music that I'm going to put at the end, at the beginning, and a little impact at the end. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to start by dragging this room tone in, and I'm going to drop it right down the bottom here so that it creates a fourth audio track. I'm going to zoom out and just adjust this so it's a little bit shorter and actually matches the duration of this. When I play it back, you'll notice that you can see that ambience right there. And it's so quiet, it's at minus 25 decibels, that I don't actually think I'm going to adjust the slider for this track, which I really recommend if you've got your dialogue on one channel, your ambience, and on another, you've got your sound effects on another. A simple way to adjust the volume of all of those clips at once is by dragging down these faders. So if I wanted to...
What's crack-a-lackin'?
Reduce the level of that ambient sound, I could simply drag this fader down. As it happens, it's a really quiet track.
Oh, hey.
I can hear those birds in the background, so I'm actually going to drag that down a little bit more. I'm also going to add some music. I'm just hitting Command Tab to go here. I've got this track, so it's just a little bit of a bass that I'm going to play at the beginning here. And I'm also going to drop a little bit of an impact at the end for when I cut to black, when this jerk of a character disappears. Once again, I'm hitting the plus button to zoom in. And so I've now got this little bassy kind of impact sound there. All right, so we've got our music in, we've got our ambience in, we've got this bass sound at the end. The other thing that I'm going to drop in are some clicks of the mouse. So I think in this shot here, for example, I've got 2 clicks of the mouse there, and this just is basically hissing. So what I'm going to do is hit Command L to unlink this. I'm going to remove this ambient sound entirely in a moment. I'm pressing the plus button to zoom in. Now you'll notice that I actually click the mouse right about here. Now, if you've got a sound like this and you want to make a note of it, if you select the clip and hit M, it creates a little marker here, which is really handy for syncing things up. So I've got another mouse click here, so I'm just going to hit the marker again, and I've got these 2 mouse clicks. And again, what I'm doing is basically taking some higher quality sound and putting it in here. You can do this with footsteps, you can do this with a whole lot of Foley sound, and it really helps to improve the quality of your mix and the quality of your sound as well. So what I have is, I'm going to go back here, I've got these mouse clicks. I'm going to drag and drop them into my project, double click to bring them up here. And you'll notice when I press I to mark in and O to mark out, I can drag this audio down here. And what I'm going to do is actually put this on track number 3. I'm just going to keep it separate from my ambience and keep it separate from my music so that I can adjust all of this at once. And I'm going to toggle in just a little bit closer. One of the really handy shortcuts when you're working with audio and you're trying to place it like this is Command right arrow and left arrow will nudge the clip forward and backwards 1 frame at a time. If you hold down Command Shift right arrow, it does it 10 frames at a time. So that's a really handy way just to nudge clips around like this until you get them into the right place. And just for a little bit of variety, so it's not the same mouse click, which people will pick up on, I'm going to mark in at another mouse click, mark out, drag it and drop it into my sequence. And I'm going to try to place this one right about here. So now we have this. And if I remove this, we've still got our ambient track in the background here, but we should be able to hear these mouse clicks like that. Now they are quite loud. Now we're going to begin the process of mixing our different sounds. So you'll notice before using my audio track mixer that I actually dragged the volume slider down here, the fader, so that I reduced the sound of my ambience, which made it just so it wasn't competing too much with my dialogue, which is the most important thing in this scene. I've also got this. So what I could do is if my sound effects were all relatively consistent, I could just drag this fader down like that. But because I might have a range of different sound effects on this track, I'm actually going to adjust the volume on this particular track clip by clip. So what you'll notice is that when you mouse over the division between different audio clips like this and drag it out, I'm going to press the plus button just to zoom in a couple of times. You can see this volume slider. So when I mouse over this with my move tool, you can see that the volume is set to 0. So if I drag this down to about, I'm going to try -10 for these 2 mouse clicks. That should sound a little bit more normal and more natural and not like the mouse is actually sitting on top of the microphone. Let's play it back. All right, that actually sounds reasonably good. So that's how you can adjust the volume of individual tracks. That is really important for music because music is typically heavily compressed and it will sound much louder than your dialogue and your sound effects. So with this track, if I play it back, have a listen to how loud it is. It's actually quite a bit louder than this. Now, there's no rule of thumb for this, but I'm going to drag this down to about -18 to -20 decibels because I don't want it to really interfere with the dialogue and the ambience too much.
Hey man, what's crack?
Now, that actually sounds reasonably good. So I've changed the volume of my music, my mouse clicks, and now at the end here, I'm going to reduce the sound of this impact that kind of plays. I'm going to drag it down to about -10 decibels.
Nah, not really.
And rather than fading out here, I want to cut to black. So let's have a look at how that looks. All right. Now it is quite a little bit louder than I want, so I'm going to drag it down to about -20. So I've adjusted my ambience using the fader over here on my audio track mixer. I've adjusted the volume of my music, my impact, and my Foley sounds as well. And so using a combination of the audio track mixer and the individual volume levels for clips, with a bit of work, you'll be able to mix your audio nicely. Mastering audio is the final stage in any mix. Premiere allows you to perform some final adjustments that will sweeten the audio in your project. In the audio track mixer, for this mix track at the end, if you click on the caret, which opens up our send effects, you'll notice that we can add different effects to this master track. So this is overall what we're working with. Under the special menu, you're going to notice that there's an option called mastering. And so what this is going to do is just add a final layer of polish to the entire product. So if I double click on mastering here, you'll notice that there are a range of different presets. I don't think Bright Hype or Club Master is necessarily what I'm after. I'm going to choose subtle clarity. And what you'll notice again is this is just bringing up those sort of mid to high tones here that will make voices sound quite sweet. So let's play it back a little bit. If I drag this up slightly, it's going to add a little bit of extra punch to that sound.
Cool. Yeah, editing can be a real drag. You know what's not a drag?
So when I turn that effect on using this button right here, you can hear that difference, and it does make my overall mix sound a little bit better. Let's have a listen. This is without.
Cool. Yeah.
And that is with. Now, of course, if you've already made these adjustments using Essential Sound or with the send effect here, then it probably won't be necessary to do this final stage of mastering this particular mix track. When it comes to audio, listen carefully to your work and do what sounds best. Thanks so much for watching.
Hey man, what's crack-a-lackin'? Oh, hey. Just editing this dialogue. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I want it to look really, really good. Cool. Yeah, editing can be a real drag. You know what's not a drag? This delicious cup of coffee. Yeah, that's wonderful. But I really should get back to... Yeah, it's like a warm hug for my taste buds, you know what I'm saying? Do you want a cup? Really? Nah, not really.